A family in Ohio unwraps a brand new $1,500 refrigerator. On day 3, it starts buzzing like a generator. They call Lowe's. The answer is simple. Policy doesn't allow returns after 48 hours. No exceptions, no inspection, no help. Within months, stories like this flood Reddit, TikTok, local news stations, and consumer forums. Customer satisfaction charts fall harder than U.S. home improvement spending. Foot traffic at key stores drops. Appliance market share slips. The trust that once made Lowe's America's go-to home store evaporates almost overnight. But the bigger problem is older than the policy everyone blames. The collapse didn't start with returns. It started decades earlier, in decisions Lowe's believed would make it unstoppable. When a brand built on trust suddenly becomes a brand built on rules, the question is simple: what actually changed inside? For most Americans, Lowe's wasn't just a store. It was the place every renovation, repair, and first home dream began. A neighborly brand that offered answers, not excuses. So why did millions of Americans walk away? The real story is colder and sharper. The fall of Lowe's lives inside logistics decisions buried deep inside supply chain models, decades of unchecked store expansion, the quiet collapse of employee expertise, a nationwide shift toward disposable appliances, and finally, one policy decision that pushed customers past their breaking point. This isn't about a bad week or a bad quarter. This is the anatomy of a slow collapse, one crack at a time, until the entire structure fails. Before we break this open, one thing. If you want deep dive investigations into how companies rise, fall, and reshape the world around us, subscribe to Geologic. Now let's go back to the moment everything started, long before customers even noticed. Before the giant stores, before the corporate policies, before the buzzwords and KPIs, Lowe's was a place where people actually knew your name. In the late 1940s, America was rebuilding a life interrupted by war. Houses weren't just structures, they were symbols of stability. And Lowe's sat right in the emotional center of that moment. A single store in North Carolina became a lifeline for families who finally had the chance to build something of their own. Employees weren't called associates. They were craftsmen, veterans, neighbors. A young couple walking in with nothing but a blueprint and a budget didn't get pointed toward an aisle. They got walked to the product. They were told which nails wouldn't rust, which lumber wouldn't warp, which tool wouldn't break when money was tight. The early Lowe's model worked for one reason. Every transaction carried trust. Customers didn't shop there for price. They shopped there because they believed the person across the counter wanted them to succeed. But the part no one talks about is simple. The moment Lowe's tried to scale that relationship, it began building the very system that would one day destroy it. By the late 1970s, Lowe's leadership saw the future taking shape. America was suburbanizing, homes were bigger, DIY culture was exploding, and an emerging competitor, Home Depot, was proving a dangerous truth. The future belonged to massive warehouse-style stores. Lowe's made a decision that reshaped everything. Go big, go uniform, go national. It looked brilliant. Uniform processes, centralized logistics, thousands of SKUs, identical stores from Florida to Michigan. Revenue soared through the 1980s. The 1990s boom turned Lowe's into a rocket. By the mid-2000s, nearly 2,000 stores covered the country. But scale carries a hidden penalty. The bigger Lowe's became, the thinner the expertise became. The more standardized the stores became, the less personal the service felt. The more processes replaced judgment, the more customers learned a blunt truth. Lowe's employees could follow rules, but they no longer had the freedom to solve problems. Inside the company, managers pushed speed. Corporate pushed uniformity. Training time shrank. Product specialization shrank. And the very thing customers valued, human guidance, got suffocated by efficiency models. The gamble worked for decades. But like every shortcut, the bill eventually arrives. And it arrived the moment appliances stopped lasting 20 years and started failing in 3. Around the late 2000s, the appliance industry changed. Not because manufacturers wanted to cheapen products, but because technology became more intricate, materials became thinner, energy rules became stricter, and global supply chains rewired themselves. Modern appliances became thinner, lighter, more energy efficient, more complex, harder to repair, and far more vulnerable to defects. A refrigerator from the 1970s could outlive 3 owners. A modern one often struggles to survive 7 years. Customers didn't just notice this shift. They felt betrayed by it. Appliances are high-risk purchases. When they fail early, the financial hit lands instantly. And this is where Lowe's walked into the trap. When product reliability drops, customer expectations rise. Better warranties, better returns, better support. If the machine fails sooner, the retailer has to step in faster. Lowe's didn't step in, it stepped back. Instead of adapting to a market full of fragile appliances, Lowe's tightened policies, reduced employee authority, cut installation oversight, and expected customers to absorb the new risk on their own. This wasn't one mistake, it was the first major structural fracture. The moment customer expectations and corporate priorities started moving in opposite directions. By the early 2010s, the warning signs weren't subtle. They were everywhere, small on their own, but deadly when they started stacking. Incorrect deliveries, damaged appliances, weeks-long wait times for replacements, contractors blaming the store, stores blaming contractors, customers trapped in the middle. These weren't random frustrations. They were symptoms of Lowe's biggest operational weakness. The system was built to move inventory, not to resolve customer problems. As Lowe's expanded, delivery networks were outsourced. Experienced in-house teams were replaced with cheaper contractors. Communication lines splintered. A single appliance could pass through 3 subcontractors before reaching the customer. Every handoff was a chance for something to go wrong. And when it did, no one had the authority to fix it. Inside the stores, the pattern repeated. Staffing models were based on sales forecasts, not on product complexity. A store carrying 4,000 SKUs of appliances might have only one person who actually understood them, and that person was often assigned to stocking or checkout. Customers walked in expecting answers. They walked out with printouts, confusion, and the sense that Lowe's no longer knew its own products. A brand doesn't collapse from one bad decision. It collapses when customers experience 10 small disappointments in a row, and Lowe's was stacking those disappointments fast. When the 48-hour appliance return policy appeared, most people had the same reaction. Why would a company do something this self-destructive? But inside the business logic, the picture changes. Lowe's was bleeding from 2 fronts: return fraud and open box losses. Generators returned after hurricane season. Washers used for months and swapped out. Contractors abusing policies to rent equipment. And above all, manufacturers refusing reimbursement past a tight inspection window. Leadership made a cold calculation: reduce return losses, protect margins. But they missed the psychological cost. An expensive appliance isn't just a product, it's a risk decision. When you tell a family they have 48 hours to detect hidden problems buried inside a complex machine, you're not selling them security, you're handing them liability. Customers quickly understood the shift. Lowe's had moved from "we stand with you" to "you're on your own." You can recover from bad service, you can recover from delays, you can even recover from defective products, but you cannot recover after customers realize the brand no longer shares their risk. That single policy didn't just break trust, it confirmed what years of small cracks had whispered. Lowe's wasn't the same brand anymore, and customers left because the policy exposed the truth they already suspected. The behavioral economics, the way people process risk. Customers don't judge appliances logically, they judge them emotionally through risk and uncertainty, especially high-value, low-frequency purchases. 4 psychological triggers accelerated Lowe's fall. Loss aversion. People fear losing money far more than they value saving it. A $1,500 refrigerator that might fail after day 2 becomes a threat, not a purchase. Lowe's became the brand associated with that threat. Asymmetry of blame. When a product fails, customers blame the retailer first, even when the manufacturer is responsible. A strict return policy turns frustration into anger, perceived abandonment. When employees say, "I'm not allowed to do that," customers don't hear policy. They hear abandonment, trust compression. Trust doesn't erode slowly. It breaks suddenly when customers feel the relationship flipped from safety to danger. The 48-hour rule didn't just shrink a return window, it flipped Lowe's identity. Once trust collapses, no discount, no holiday promotion, no marketing campaign can rebuild it quickly. Retailers can repair logistics. They cannot repair psychology overnight. Lowe's didn't lose customers because of inconvenience. It lost them because customers felt unprotected, unheard, and unimportant. Customers weren't the only ones losing faith. Inside Lowe's, another collapse was unfolding quietly, one the public didn't see until it was too late. Long-tenured employees, the ones who actually understood appliances, lumber, wiring, HVAC, flooring, and installation, were leaving in waves. Not because they wanted to leave, but because the system made their jobs impossible. Training budgets shrank. Department specialists were stretched thin. Product knowledge sessions were replaced with efficiency metrics. Schedules became algorithm-driven. Authority to solve customer issues was removed piece by piece. The message from corporate was clear. Follow the process, not your expertise. You can't build a high-trust brand with low-trust employees. Inside break rooms, the tone shifted from pride to survival. I can't help the customer. I don't have permission. They cut our hours again but expect the same output. It's not the old Lowe's anymore. Customers felt that loss instantly. Walk into any store and the pattern was obvious. 10 aisles, 0 specialists, new staff reading the same product tags the customer is reading. Managers buried in paperwork instead of helping on the floor. Home improvement retail lives or dies on expertise. When that disappears, the store becomes just another warehouse, and customers have no reason to stay loyal. The collapse wasn't loud. It was quiet. A slow erosion of the one thing Lowe's once delivered better than anyone: human guidance. If internal cracks weakened the structure, the market of the 2020s finished the job. Home improvement spending fell hard. From 2021 onward, renovation budgets shrank as interest rates climbed to levels that froze the housing market. If people aren't buying homes or refinancing, they aren't upgrading kitchens. Lowe's built an empire on the belief renovations would rise forever. They didn't. DIY collapsed after the pandemic boom. During lockdowns, people tackled projects out of boredom and necessity. Once life resumed, the trend died. People were tired, busy, and uninterested in doing repairs themselves. Lowe's core audience shrank, and the company never pivoted. Appliances became a risky purchase. Higher defect rates. Shorter lifespans, more complaints, more distrust. Customers needed retailers willing to share the risk. Lowe's tightened its stance instead. Then the pro market shifted to Home Depot. Professionals are the backbone of home improvement retail. They buy the most, generate the highest margin sales, and return weekly. Home Depot spent billions to capture them. Lowe's didn't fight hard enough, and losing pros meant losing volume, credibility, and reliability. And the supply chain turned into a minefield. Manufacturers struggled with parts shortages, shipping delays, labor gaps, and new regulations. Retailers who adapted quickly gained an advantage. Lowe's adapted slower than Home Depot, slower than Amazon, and slower than local stores. All these forces converged. Lowe's was squeezed from every direction just as its internal problems peaked. A collapse this large never happens in isolation. Lowe's wasn't just failing. Other players were outclassing it in ways customers could feel. Home Depot became the logistics powerhouse. While Lowe's focused on uniformity and cost-cutting, Home Depot built one of the strongest retail logistics systems in the country. Rapid deployment centers, contractor-first delivery scheduling, cleaner SKU rationalization, more product expertise on the floor, more stable staffing, better training programs. Home Depot didn't win by being cheaper. They won by removing friction. Amazon became the convenience monster. Lowe's believed people wouldn't buy appliances online. They were wrong. Amazon partnered with installers. Amazon offered transparent returns. Amazon promised delivery windows Lowe's couldn't match. Amazon didn't need deep expertise. It offered predictability. Customers trust consistency more than charm. And local stores made a comeback by doing what Lowe's no longer could. Flexible returns, in-person service, real product advice, equipment lending, follow-up calls, accountability. For modern customers, this wasn't nostalgia, it was survival. Lowe's built a system optimized for volume. The market shifted towards service. Lowe's didn't move with it. This was the moment the giant found itself fighting 3 enemies at once and losing ground to all of them. Competitors framed Lowe's leadership as out of touch. The truth is sharper. None of the decisions that damaged Lowe's came from stupidity. They came from models, metrics, and narrow calculations. Inside corporate offices, the logic looked rational. Standardization reduces labor cost, so expertise was replaced with process. Tightening returns reduces shrink, so they gambled on customer tolerance. Third-party deliveries are cheaper, so they outsourced the most fragile part of the customer experience. More SKUs mean more sales, so stores filled with products no one could fully explain. Efficiency beats relationship, so employees lost authority and customers lost advocates. These choices weren't emotional, they were mathematical, and math is blind to human psychology. The hidden flaw was simple. Lowe's didn't sell appliances, Lowe's sold trust. Every cost-saving measure eroded the very thing customers were actually buying. Leadership reduced overhead, but the cost they never measured, customer patience, customer trust, customer loyalty, grew until it crushed the brand. Corporate didn't break Lowe's by miscalculating. They broke it by calculating the wrong things. Retail empires don't fall from a single hit. They fall when dozens of failures finally line up. For Lowe's, the timing was brutal. Appliances became less reliable, returns became harder, delivery errors increased, service expertise evaporated, customers became more risk-sensitive, home improvement spending dropped, pros moved to Home Depot, convenience shifted to Amazon, trust shifted to local stores. Any one of these is manageable. Together, they're fatal. By 2023, Lowe's wasn't in a down cycle. It was in a confidence collapse. The brand no longer felt neighborly. It felt like a polished machine with nothing inside it, a place where every employee could only say, "I'm not allowed." Customers weren't angry. They felt abandoned. And abandonment is the one emotion a retail giant cannot survive. Now the real question, is Lowe's too big to fall or too fragile to repair? There are three paths forward. Scenario 1, a return to service, reverse the 48-hour rule, empower employees, rebuild training, restore local expertise. This is the fastest way to regain trust, but it requires admitting the previous strategy failed, and that rarely happens quickly. Scenario 2, the logistics arms race. Invest billions to match Home Depot's operational strength. New distribution centers, better contractor networks, real-time delivery management, SKU cleanup. It's possible, but expensive. And the window is closing. Scenario 3, the slow-motion collapse. Cost-cutting continues. Training thins out. Pros leave. Appliance trust disappears. Lowe's becomes the next Sears. Not dead, but irrelevant. Not because customers dislike it, but because they no longer see a reason to choose it. The fall of Lowe's was never just about appliances, returns, or logistics. It was about the moment a brand stopped listening to the people who built it. A company can survive defective products. It can survive delivery delays. It can survive supply chain chaos. But once customers believe a brand won't stand beside them, the relationship ends instantly. Lowe's didn't fall because machines got weaker. It fell because trust did. And trust is the one product you can't restock once it's gone. If this deep dive changed how you see the companies shaping your life, hit like, share this with someone who's lived through a Lowe's nightmare, and subscribe to Geologic for more investigations into the hidden forces behind our world. Because collapses never start with a bang. They start with a crack, small, quiet, and ignored, until the whole structure gives way.